Tydens die COVID-19-pandemie het die hele wêreld opnuut besef hoe belangrik verpleegkundiges werklik is. Hulle het in die voorste linies gestaan en 'n onbekende vyand in die oog gestaar. Daar is wêreldwyd 'n tekort aan verpleegkundiges. In Suid-Afrika het ons net 1 per 218 mense. Die Verenigde Nasies beveel aan dat daar tenminste 1 verpleër per 196 Suid-Afrikaners moet wees. Minder as 'n derde van ons verpleegkundiges is onder die ouderdom van 40 en binne 15 jaar gaan byna 50% afgetree wees. Daar word beraam dat Suid-Afrika tans 'n tekort aan 26,000 verpleërs het. En na verwagting sal hierdie getal teen 2030 styg tot oor die 100,000.
The studies by the World Health Organization in conjunction with the International Council of Nurses, for instance, in 2020, issued a report. It said countries must at least strive to increase the number of nurses that they produce each and every year, at least by 8%, from then until 2030 to avoid the catastrophic levels of shortage. We have not been doing that, for one, as a country. Instead of increasing, we are reducing.
Dis 'n baie mobiele groep praktisyns, verpleegkundiges. Hulle reis oor die wêreld, want hulle kan eintlik enige plek in die wêreld werk. En veral as jy gespesialiseerd is, dit is waar ons grootste tekorte is op die oomblik.
Because of the conditions mainly caused by the shortage of staff, they are deciding to leave the country and to work as nurses elsewhere. For 2007, there was a similar mass exodus of nurses from South Africa to the developed countries like the UK, for instance. And the government at the time tried to come up with something called occupation-specific dispensation, OSD, for nurses. It's a strategy, essentially, whereby the government was trying to incentivize nurses. The longer they stayed in the public service, you get increase in terms of the notch, the payment notch that you are at. If you get a specialist qualification, that will be taken into account, and that will also improve your remuneration. Many nurses who had already moved to the UK were starting to come back to the country. Of course, it needed to be improved, and by 2012, it needed to have been reviewed. But I think 11 years now, it has never been reviewed, and nurses are starting to pack their bags and headed for the UK again.
I think for me, the wonderful thing is the South African nurses return. And we've had a lot of them return and work in our units. And for me, that exposure to a healthcare service in another country just adds value to their experience. And they come back to us, and we're very happy to have them. So yes, they will circulate the system, and that's another reason why we should be training more nurses. Because we shouldn't only be catering for the healthcare services where we need them to be employed. We need to know there's always going to be a percentage of nurses that leave us. We have additional problems in South Africa. Yes, we had a shortage before the pandemic. I think the pandemic added to the shortage. We saw a lot of our staff leave the profession. We've also seen nurses wanting to take early retirement post the pandemic. But together with that, we've had a radical change in terms of education in South Africa. The Minister of Higher Education wanted the legacy qualifications to come to an end in December 2019. They moved all of the nursing qualifications into higher education, which was a great achievement for our profession, and especially from a remuneration point of view. We're attracting school leavers with better results, so we're getting a better caliber of individual coming into the profession.
So colleges het 80% van die geregistreerde mense opgelei en die universiteite so tussen 20 en 23%. So hulle was in die hoofstroom van onderwys, maar die colleges was nie. Tussen 2020 en nou kan ons daarom sê dat amper al die skole geakkrediteer is met programme wat loop.
What we have found to be a bit of a disappointment with this process is that it has unearthed a number of backlogs in infrastructure and investment and upskilling of nursing personnel and upskilling of nurse educators at the colleges, public nursing colleges. Because of the neglect in investment in nursing education, we are finding ourselves on the other side, where we are finding that, well, the numbers that now these nursing colleges must take, based on the assessment by the South African Nursing Council and, of course, the Council on Higher Education, are far less than the numbers that we had under the legacy program.
So dit is regtig 'n komplekse multifaktoriële probleem en ons kan nie een persoon daarvoor beskuldig nie. En dan die akkreditasieproses, soos ek gesê het, neem ontsettend lank, want die beroepsraad moet eers goedkeur en dan moet ons hoër onderwysraad dit goedkeur. En elkeen het maar sy kriteria, so dis 'n heen en weer proses.
This year, we talk of around 26,000 shortage of nurses, mainly in the public sector. And if you look at all our colleges and nursing schools and universities, all combined, both private and public, they're not giving us, for instance, more than 5,000 students who have qualified as nurses. Now, this was before we reached this a level where we are now on the level playing fields.
The Nursing Council has very specific guidelines in terms of how they go about approving programs. I think our challenge at the moment is we have demonstrated in the past that we have both the capacity and the capability to train many more students. And for now, we have been restricted to 30 students. Obviously, the council uses specific criteria, specifically around clinical learning facilities. Where can the students get the best learning opportunities? Well, we are fortunate because we are linked to a hospital group, and we feel that we do have adequate facilities. So I suppose for us, the question is always, what is the formula used to actually allocate those numbers?
Ons land of ons huidige regering maak nie voorsiening regtig vir ordentlike privaat instansies vir opleiding nie. So ons weet dat hospitale soos Life en Netcare het klomp verpleegsters opgelek. So nou is ons nog besig om van daai goeie opleidings moontlikhede wat daar is. Ons is besig om daarvan ontslae te raak dis op 'n politieke manier en dit maak my baie ongelukkig, want as jy erns in jou land het dat jy wil goeie diens gee en jy wil goeie gesondheid gee en wil goeie verpleegkundige dienste gee, dan moet jy toelaat dat private instansies dan hierdie mense oplei en jy moet seker maak dat die kurrikulum daarom net aan 'n goeie internasionale standaard ook voldoen. Maar moenie begin om 'n wetgewing in te bring of dit so moeilik te maak vir die private instansies wat wil opleiding doen, dat dit feitelik onbekostigbaar duur word om dit te doen. Want al wat jy gaan benadeel is, jy benadeel net jou eie mense, jou eie land.
Just post-1994, many of those public nursing colleges were closed. I always make an example of Gauteng, which pre-94, for instance, had about 8 public nursing colleges in a province that at the time was having around 7 million, maximum of people. Around 2019, 2018, the province had about 14, 15 million people, and yet you have 3 public nursing colleges. We are not getting to an agreement either, well, particularly on the government side, to say, okay, now here is our commitment. We are committing to reopening all previously closed nursing colleges. Well, the president in 2011 did that, but nothing came of that. He had promised to refurbish and reopen all previously closed nursing colleges.
En al maak jy nou die colleges oop, jou breindrein, jou kennis, jou mentorskap is nie meer regtig daar nie. So hierdie word 'n baie moeilike veld vorentoe.